Have you ever listened to a podcast or read a book or heard a keynote or had a conversation with somebody, and then the moment they start speaking, you knew it was going to literally take you to church? Like every ounce of everything you believed to be true was going to get dismantled in that moment. I now know what it feels like sometimes to be in a room with me, and for the most incredible reasons, because on today's episode, we have Dr. Dr. Darnyelle, and I can tell you that I fell in love with this woman immediately, and I can't even begin to explain the level of depth, the level of takeaways, the level of clarity, the level of love, the level of self-empathy, and all of these incredible pieces that combine together make me and anybody who listens to this a super force for good in your business, on how to operate in your business, on how to operate in life. And we broke into all of it. We got into childhood beliefs and experiences and how they shape our current reality, but how we have the power to challenge and change them. We talked about how making a decision and fully committing to it is the first step towards embodying our desires, how detaching from the outcome and trusting the process is essential in manifesting them. And boy, oh boy, did that one tickle. And I'm living on the other side of that 18 months later. And if there's any recommendation I can make, it's just write down all the notes in that part, because it lands and it's making me emotional talking about it. And we talk about how daily surrender and consistent belief in our vision are necessary to overcome fear and doubt, and how surrendering and making space for God is essential for success, plus so much more. I feel like I found a long lost sister, and this episode spoke to my soul on so many levels, and I'm so excited to share it with you, and I cannot wait to hear your responses. So please shoot me a DM. Please shoot me a message. There's nothing that means more to me in the world than hearing how this lands. And here's a little secret. My love language is words of affirmations. And the ones that make me the favorite are when you message me and tell me what you learned or what landed or what you got out of it. And it fills my bucket. And so I'm telling you that because I really genuinely love it. So please make sure you take notes in this one. Please make sure you pay attention, be present, because it's loaded. And I can't wait to hear what you say. But without further ado, let's get into the show. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George show. And to say I'm incredibly excited would be an understatement, but I'm just going to frame this right now because I feel like we're about to be taken to church, because in the 5 minutes, and I mean the 5 minutes, where I got past the filter of awe and humility by today's guest, she also dropped so many one-liners on me that's made me covered in goosebumps and tickled, and I don't even feel qualified to be a host of my show today. I feel more qualified to throw her a softball and just let her take us to church. And so let me just give you some of the things that everybody looks for. 7 best-selling books, generated over like $500 million in revenue, helped clients make $378 million combined, helps 6- and 7-figure earners while keeping God at the forefront of everything. And in my opinion, already in a matter of moments is like a walking embodiment of a soul queen that I am just so ready to take me to church. And so without further ado, Darnyelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, George. I'm so excited to be here. I too am one big goosebump right now. So I know that this is going to be a powerful conversation. And my only hope is that whoever needs to hear this conversation today, that they hear it and that they execute on what comes out of it so that they can experience everything they desire as a result of it.
Yeah, and I feel like just in even hearing you speak, you have surgical precision with your words to get straight to the soul tickles. And so I am like here for it. And it's actually kind of like a perfect intro, because for everybody to break the fourth wall, I was like, hey, where's the dessert? Where are we starting? And she looked me dead in the eye, and I had to write this down. And she's like, effort won't make you millions, embodiment will. And I was like, oh, girl, take me to church. And so we're just going to start there. And so, Darnyelle, would you just mind unpacking that and take us to school?
Absolutely. So in order to do that, I got to go back. So I'm going to just tell a piece of my story so that this all makes sense. So I was born to drug addicted turned crack addicted parents in 1975 in the projects of Wilmington, Delaware. When I was 8, my mom went to jail. Her home was raided during my 8th birthday, and they took her to jail. And so we went to live with my father and my stepmother. My stepmother did not let it be a secret that she did not want us to be there. My dad was a very functional addict. So he would leave for work on Friday, and then we'd see him again Monday after work. All weekend, he'd binge and do his thing. So I had lots of time in which to wonder and pontificate about my purpose, my existence, and my ability to have a life that would matter. I felt very lost. And on top of that, I'm the middle child, and middle children are invisible. And so I didn't feel grounded to anything in particular as I was growing up, save for the teachers and guidance counselors who saw my promise and my potential. I think first of Miss Dixon, who was my 5th grade teacher, who taught me the power of my words. You said I have surgical precision with my words, which I love. I have never heard that before, but I receive it because I know that words matter. When I was 10 in the 5th grade, I was an angry Black girl. My mom had just gone to jail, and I heard my stepmom talking on the phone to her mother and her friends every day saying she wished I wasn't there. And I was pissed. I didn't know pissed as a word at 10, but today at 48, I was pissed. And Miss Dixon, she did not see an angry Black girl. Instead, she saw promise and potential. And she was committed to honing that potential to turn it into something really great. And so she gave me my very first journal. And she told me about the power of channeling my words into positive energy so that I would not hold or embody, since that's what we're going to be talking about, the spirit of me that was defeated, deflated, felt unworthy, and didn't think she mattered. And so in a matter of weeks, I literally got my life when I filled that very first journal. Her words were simply, every time you get angry, I want you to write. And within 2 weeks, I had filled up the journal because I was an angry child. And when I ran back to her at school, running off the school bus, running into her arms to tell her that I had found my purpose, because she had been teaching us on purpose in class. And my purpose was to use words to change the lives of other people. And so I sit here today before you, purposely choosing words that will disrupt and disconnect the patterns that exist in your life to have you living in the mediocrity that is beneath what it is that is truly desired for you. And so when I think about embodiment won't make you or effort won't make you millions, embodiment will. I'm going to take you to not too long ago. Approximately 6 weeks ago, I was in the shower. That's where God and I have our board meetings. And there's just something about the water, right? And the water is coming down, and I hear as clear as day, not effort, embodiment. That's what I hear. Now, in my work, I work with entrepreneurs and small business owners that desire to have $1 million companies that serve them financially and spiritually with grace and ease instead of hustle and grind. So we don't believe in grinding. We don't believe in hustle, and we don't believe that you work hard for your money, although that's what most of us were born and raised to believe. And so as I heard God clearly talk about embodiment, I started to question it everywhere. What does it first mean? So this is the definition according to Darnyelle. Embodiment means fully governing a feeling, a belief, and a conviction about who you are that flowers your whole life experience. It's about taking up space. I was telling George just as we got started in January, because this year for me is the year of anchored ascension. And what that means is I'm looking to go deeper in pivotal relationships in order to go higher in my craft, in my business, in my industry, etc. And one of the most pivotal relationships that I desire to grow is my relationship with God. I am an unapologetic God girl. I won't push my beliefs on you, but I won't apologize for them either. And God told me to read the book of Deuteronomy in the Bible. And the Bible, if you ask me, and a lot of people say this, the Bible stands for basic instructions before leaving earth.
Before you're leaving earth.
It's a book that is used religiously. It is not a religious book. Mm-hmm. Right? And so he told me to read Deuteronomy, and Deuteronomy is the book of the rules, because the children of Israel are on their way to the promised land. And Moses, who's not going with them to the promised land, has to prepare them for what is to come when they enter the promised land. And in chapter 7 of Deuteronomy, Moses tells the children of Israel 8 times, 8 is the number of new beginnings. He tells them 8 times to enter and occupy. And what I heard in my spirit when I read that was embody. So many of us enter. We enter into a business, we enter into an industry, we enter into a room, but we don't occupy it. We don't set up and take up space like it's ours, like we own it, like we deserve to be there. And so I'm hoping that in this conversation today, I give you insight, I give you permission, I give you a sign that this is the season for you to enter and occupy, to take up space, to do what it is that you uniquely do that no one can do like you, and to do it in a way that when you do it, lives are changed and the planet shakes. And so for me, embodiment is about recognizing that when you were born, you were gifted with every talent and ability that you need to shake the corner of the planet that is uniquely yours to shake. And when you operate in the confidence of that, then you get to experience the result of having changed so many lives that you cannot even count. So that's what it means to me.
Girl, I feel like I just found my sister. Like, what?
I've been looking for you.
Oh my goodness. And here's the craziest thing, like parents, same drug addiction, same story, same function. It was literally my guidance counselors that literally passed me for school. So I had a chance to let me go to the Marine Corps, except your clarity and journal at 8, I didn't find till I was 35, but I'm still so glad that I found it and put it. I'm over here just like covered in goosies right now. I don't even know what to call it. That's the silliest thing I could say, but goosies is the only
I feel
feeling
the same.
I have in my body.
I'm an ice ball right now. Like it. Yeah.
Ooh, thank you. Number one, holy moly. And it tickled me because even when you were talking about Deuteronomy and embodiment and taking up space, I feel like the world that we live in, marketing and business and all these entrepreneurs are taught all these like, do it my way and do it this way. And it's this way or the highway. And it has to be my way. And it just conditions all this noise and things that block them. And they end up trying to hustle and grind their way out of it. And it's like, no, it's like you belong. Like, this is your space. There is no other you. Like, I'm like, I just want to throw like 800, like, preach and like, let you go. Holy moly. Yes. And so then I want to, oh man, I got so many questions.
I got answers.
So many. I know. Trust me, that I do know. I feel like God put you on my podcast today for me. And this is just going to be one of those convos. And I'm like, let's go. And so, you know, I'll say this personally, because I also know there's a lot of people listening and myself included for years that felt like my story defined the life that I was supposed to live. Right. And people look at me and they're like, well, how'd you do it? And I'm like, well, God was guiding me. I just didn't know it was God because, you know, a lot of people looked at me and thought that I was trying to disprove God by going into breath work and plant medicine and ayahuasca. And it was all leading me back home. But there was always this calling on my heart. Like, I don't know how at 9 years old when I was like, wait, I don't want to end up like that. Like, that's not mine. Like, I don't have to be like this. I want to leave. Right. And a lot of the things that people celebrate me for, like my New York Times bestseller and blah, 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 they were byproducts of me just trying to take up space and find purpose and like meaning. And so I'm just innately curious of like what that journey has been like for you. Like at 8 years old, like ripping out pages of journals of like who you want to become in the world. I also know that you've faced many pieces of adversity and challenges, and I feel like we only lose when we believe that story instead of choosing to write a new one. And so like, what was that process like for you?
How much time we got? No. So
we got time, girl. We got nothing but time.
So here's what I realized. And it was, you know, hindsight is 2020. So it was later. When you're in it, right? I talk a lot of times about what I call vision point versus vantage point. Right. Most of us we're operating from our vantage point, and your vantage point is always skewed. It's limited. Your view is limited, right? If you really want to elevate, you got to start operating from your vision point, right? Well, being from where I came from, very young age, recognizing that what was happening around me, I didn't want it, right? So similar to you at 9, I think I was probably 10, 11, when I was like, yeah, there's got to be something else, because this isn't it. And I don't want this. I didn't want, you know, to be poverty stricken. By the time we were 13 and in the 7th grade, most of my little childhood girlfriends they were on their second child at 13, right? Which means that they were excited about getting their own project and food stamps. And your girl didn't want that. And I can just remember thinking big before I knew it was called thinking big. And think about imagination, right? In the Bible, Genesis 1:26, God says, let us make man in our image and likeness, right? Imagination being the highest form of creativity and the highest way that we can earn, right? When you operate in your creativity, you will make way more money than a person who is just efforting, right? Embodiment is about leveraging your creativeness, right? Your ability to create things out of nothing. That's who we are. That's who we be. That's our identity. And so recognizing that at a very young age and allowing my journals to be the place where I pontificated about what I imagined until I was in position to actually, do something different to make that my reality. And so for me, in my high school years, that looked like studying voraciously. I got a perfect verbal SAT score. I got into lots of schools. I ended up going to the University of Delaware. I live in Delaware. And primarily because I didn't want to pay for college. Like, it never entered into my mind that I should get student loans. I'm grateful. I'm so grateful that I never got student loans. And I just always believed that there was more, that there was better. I don't think that stopped me from making some of the mistakes that I made on the journey. I think that they were all apropos. They had to be made because they would be the source from which I'm not theorizing when I'm talking to clients today. If I hadn't experienced anything, then I wouldn't be able to guide them, right? Like I shared with you before we started recording, I love talking about money. I love money. I have an anointing for money. And had I not had money, a large amount of money stolen from me, amassed a whole bunch of debt that turned into bankruptcy and lost it all, more time than I wanted to, I wouldn't be equipped to lead people through and on the journey to learn how to make money move for them. And so I think all of these things that we've been through, I don't feel like a victim. I think my parents did the best that they could with what they had. I just made a decision that their best was not the best, and I was after God's best. And that meant that I needed to make some different decisions in order to arrive in that place.
All right. Yep. We were separated somewhere or brought back together because your vantage point versus vision point. I want to break this down because in the shower, because that's where God takes me to church.
Yes.
Every single day, and it'll just be in the shower, and then all of a sudden I feel this feeling. I drop down on my knees and the water rushes over me, and it's either tears or clarity or boom. And a couple weeks ago he put it on my heart and he's like, perspective, the difference between your prison and your power. And
oh, that's good.
And I love it, and it's tickled me.
That's so good.
It's tickled me so hard. And when you just said vision point versus vantage point, and so many things you said. So just to even wrap, because I'm going to ask a question about that, but like the things that are popping up in my head is like, God will give you the what, you fill in the details. And the other day I did a post and I said, yeah, and when you ask him to move mountains, don't forget to look down and realize he gave you a shovel. And these stories and these experiences that we've lived and we've been through are what give that perspective. And I feel like they're the greatest gift, because when resistance comes up, I think it's a conditioned muscle at this point to trust it, but like to run into it like a buffalo, like it's the fastest path through. And that's what makes us so dangerous. Right. And I just had a incredible gentleman on the show responsible for like 80 billion in revenue. He's like, well, no, success is easy because I've literally done it all. So I know what not to do through that experience. Right. And it's not even the hustle and grind. It's like picking up the phone when it calls. Right. Another thing I've been saying lately is that when the phone rings from God, they're not interruptions. They're just invitations.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Oh, it's not an interruption. It's an invitation. Oh, that's good. I got to write that down.
Oh yeah. Write that one down. That one tickles me because I'm like, they're getting put there on purpose. Right. And this concept of yours, like even when you just said it, when you said vision point first, I wrote it in big caps, all letters. And I'm like, yes, 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 yes. And so what is a way, or when we think about vision point versus vantage point, right? What are some tangible ways in which people can start to really change their perspective of that situation? Because I also know, as one of my mentors, Simon Bowen says, is that people don't choose to self-sabotage. They accidentally behave their way into it because of that perspective. And so when we think about, the vantage point, it's how we're currently seeing what's happening. And we're looking backwards, right? Like what got us here won't get us there. And so like, how does somebody start to tune in or look from the vision point in your lens?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different things that I suggest there. So first, vision, right? So casting a vision. And when you cast a vision, you cast it in positive present tense as if it's currently your reality, right? So if I am sitting here, but I want to be over there, what does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like for me to get over there? Right? What is the energy I need to be in order to create the pathway that will get me to that place? And when I arrive there, what do I expect to be waiting for me? And so the curiosity of always challenging where we are as the best place for us to be. Now, our ego, its whole job is to keep us safe. And so your ego is going to lead you to believe that where you are right now is where you should be. And here's the thing I want you to know, and this just literally just popped in. I just heard the Spirit say, you have to remember that my ways are not your ways, right? So although we are created in God's image and likeness, right? We're literally gods of the earth. Our ways are not his ways, because the perspective that God has, because he's over us, he's a God of the universe and we're just a God of the earth. He can see what we can't see. So our view in the moment, if we're only thinking about where we are right now, is always skewed. Imagination, I talked about that being the highest form of creativity and the highest way to create value. So imagining something greater, what does it look like, right? We play this game with clients all the time where we're like, okay, what's the most you've ever charged for something? Add a 0 to the end. First, where does it show up in your body when you add that 0? Because that's going to give us an indication metaphysically of what we need to work through. That's your fear. That's your limiting belief that's showing up for you. And then secondly, and most importantly, if that was the new number, spend it in advance. Like, what would you do with it? Because money needs purpose to come into your life experience. It's not coming if it doesn't have purpose. And money can't flow if it doesn't know what you want it to do. So taking the time to say, okay, the most I've ever charged is $100K. And so now I'm going to make that $1 million, spending that money in it. What would I do if I had $1 million drop into my lap right now? What would I do? And literally spend all of it in advance, because now the purpose is set for the money so the money can flow into your life experience. Just based on imagining what you would do if you had the resource. Well, we could apply that to business, right? So I want to have a launch, and in my launch, I want to bring on 50 new clients. I've never brought on 50 new clients at one time. I don't even know what that looks like or what it feels like. Well, let's imagine that you do. Play the game with yourself. If you were to bring on 50 clients at one time, how would that feel? Now, we have to keep in mind that more clients isn't always a good thing if you don't have the right systems and infrastructure in place. So do you even have an infrastructure that could support you bringing on 50 clients at one time right now? And if not, once you imagine it, because as soon as you imagine that thing, it is now in the realm of possibility for you. So as soon as you start the imagining process, also start backing into what are the systems you need to put in place so that when it shows up, because it will show up unless you, what's the word I want to use? Unless you realign it, like reassign it, right? And it's coming to you, but if you send it out there, then it won't show up to you, but it's coming. So since you know it's coming, do the work in advance, because the amount of time that you delay doing the work, the amount of time you delay that the 50 clients show up. Right? That's that enter and occupy. So don't just enter the space and say, I want to have 50 clients. Embody that thing. Get everything in place so that when the 50 clients show up, not only can you serve them, not only can they get results, but they will refer other people so that 50 client launch becomes a 500 client launch. All because you changed from looking at your vantage point where you are right now never brought on 50 clients at once to your vision point and building out the systems to be able to bring on 500 clients.
Girl, I got one-liners for you for days too. Like I will be, if you ever need an intro for a keynote, like just call me up. I will be your hype man all day.
Okay.
All day. One of my dear friends, Alex Sharfin, he says this better than everybody. And this one tickles. And he says, you don't have the business you want because you haven't become the person to run it.
Mm-hmm.
And you are preaching it every which way. And for all my personal development people listening, this is also a masterclass in be do have, not do be have, because if it's do, it's a reaction to your current state instead of being, which is what stretches your container and your capacity and your view to be able to fill these pieces in. And this is, I literally wrote that down. Money needs purpose before it comes into your experience. Spend it in advance, like have it allocated in that state of thinking. It's not this thing that you're collecting. It's energy. It's how you're bringing your vision into life. It's how you're investing in your company, which also means that you also have to understand that. And I'm going to ask you about this too, because I'm going to speak for some people, because one of the biggest challenges that I see and why people get stuck, right? And this is what I tell people. I'm like, do you want to know why the quote, the devil in the details, is so powerful? And I was like, because when you're thinking, you're disconnected from God in your heart where the magic happens. And if he can't make you sin, he'll make you busy all day. Right.
All day.
And
twice on Sunday.
Twice on Sunday. And that perspective is huge. But I also see so many people allow their identities to be dictated by the business. And so then it's like, oh, it's my money, or I'm getting it to keep it, or I failed, or I didn't. And so it's just this constant reaction. And so how do you I know you have clients in the same 5-6 figures coming in. Well, the launch didn't work. I failed, or I can't because I haven't, or what's it mean about me? So like, how do you unpack people's like codependency with their identity being their business rather than them being the vessel, and the business is just the tool that they can make adjustments to?
Yeah. I mean, we definitely have seen that. And, our clients come to us at 6 figures and they have done everything that they know to do, right? Because they're efforting. They've ran all the strategies. They've run all the plays, and the plays worked to an extent, but they're limited by their ability to understand that the beliefs that they hold don't really serve them. Right. And so we got to go back. So I have this exercise that I do. I welcome your listeners to do it as well. Get a sheet of paper, turn it horizontal, number it from 1 to 7. 8 to 14, and increments of 7 across the page. So when we are born, we literally come here as vessels of light, pushed out or pulled out. We literally enter the earth realm as abundance. And then we meet our family, and immediately our abundance starts to go down. Now, I think your parents did the best that they could with what they had. This is not an attack on them. This is just an indication for you to understand why you are who you are today. And so from birth to the age of 7, you're literally a sponge. And you are being taught, or you have caught, life lessons that to this day you are still operating in. And you don't even know why. It's just something that you inherited it because it's what you saw, and you saw it, and your subconscious mind took it to be the truth. It created a pattern and a memory. And every time you're presented in that situation, it brings that back to you as the way you respond to it. And you're just meandering through life. Most of us, we're asleep at the wheel, right? We've all gotten in a car and we consciously remember to start the car. And then the next thing we know, we're on our street and we don't remember the drive home because our subconscious mind has driven us home. It's that powerful. And so most of the beliefs that we hold, they're not even ours. They are inherited. They are hand-me-downs and they don't serve us, but we never questioned them. We took them to be true because why would the people who are raising us tell us something that is not true? Something can be true without it being the truth. True is perspective. Truth is principle. Yes. And when you understand that and start to unpack it, you can find the patterns that are derailing your destiny to operate in your divine birthright and assignment. So take it from birth to the age of, from birth to 7, as far back as you can go. Remember things that happened the first time you experienced fear, first time you realized that there was a thing called money, the first time you felt lack, any of the anxiety overwhelm. Any of the things that plague you today as an adult, go back as far as you possibly can, if you can see back to birth through the age of 7 and see where it landed. For me, most of that stuff happened for me around age 2 and around age 6. Age 2 was when I was first introduced to fear. When we were born, we only have 2, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noise. And we inherit every other fear that we have. And so at 2, I watched my mom and dad at the top of the steps fighting about money. My mom, who was the OG, pushed my dad. He fell down the steps. And I'm 2 years old. I don't understand. So I cry and I feel a sense of panic and fear. That's when I was introduced to fear. And what I started to observe is I started to trace these patterns in my life. Every 2 years in a 7-year cycle, something traumatic would happen that would incite my fears. At age 6, I was at the grocery store with my mother. Now, this is the grocery store of 1980, 81. Right? There are no conveyor belts in 1981. There literally is just a counter. I'm small, but I'm big enough to take a piece of candy and put it up on the conveyor belt and to be met with a backhand slap, as my mother gave me one of the first things I can remember learning about money. And that was that money is only for what you need. Poor people who grow up in poverty, believe that money is just for paying bills. Middle class people believe that money is to pay your bills so that you can get credit and live beyond your means. And rich people know that money is used to create more money. But at 6, my mom gave me my first meaning of money. Every 6 years in my 7-year pattern, I would have a trauma around money. It was when my dad stole $7,500 from me. It was when I had a hiccup in college and had to try to figure out if I was going to be able to keep my financial aid. It was when I graduated with more credit card debt than my average school person had student loan debt. It was when I was 30 years old, 30, whatever that pattern was, when I had $250,000 in credit card debt. It's when I was 34 years old and I was filing bankruptcy. All because of money. And those are just 2 examples of the patterns that showed up in that first 7 years. So once you identify the pattern, look at your life in 7-year increments and see how often that pattern shows up. Once you identify the pattern, then you can actually radically dismantle the pattern by going back to the beliefs that created the pattern in the first place. You're going to have to challenge the belief. You're going to have to look for the evidence that the belief is in fact true, which there seldom is. Which then means you can create a new belief and rewire your subconscious mind to believe something different and allow that to become the new tape that plays. This is a lot of work. This is not the work people most want to do. What they want to do is they want to learn how to use AI to make more money instead of realizing that you won't make more money even if you use AI if you believe that you don't deserve it. Money flows away from those who believe there is a shortage of it. So if you say things like, I can't afford it, that's not in my budget. Why is it so expensive? You're telling money that you are not worthy of it. And it's not coming to you because it's an energy that is always moving. It never stops. But it starts with understanding the patterns that you hold and the beliefs that accompany them and challenging those beliefs so that you can create a new truth, a new conviction, and therefore create a new belief and pattern.
Girl, yep. Okay. Let's go. And for all my sciencey nerds, I'm going to hit something she said because what tickled me so much. True is perspective. Truth is principle. And these beliefs that we hold on to, and if you want to Google this, just Google Schrodinger's cat theory, because it's literally will break your brain in this, because I'll tell the story real quickly for everybody listening. But if I take 2 cats and I put them in a box with an aerosol poison and I close the box, the question is, are the cats alive or dead? And there is no answer because you don't know until you open the box, because multiple truths can be true at the same time, but it's the one that you choose to feed. And I literally, above every toilet of every space that I have, and I mean, we have like 8 toilets, office, house, I have the quote of the old Cherokee talking to the grandson about the wolf of love and light and joy, and then the one of like anger, greed. And the grandson says, well, which one wins? And he says, whichever one you feed. And I read that probably 400 times a day because of that perspective. And so that tickled out a way so deep and so deep. So I'm going to ask you a how question. I don't normally ask how questions, but that exercise of the 1 to 7, 8 to 14, and the patterns of beliefs, like I'm in, and the personal development coach in me from years ago is like, yes, 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 preach, 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 boom, boom, boom. And this lens of embodiment, right? Like it's something that I just recorded a podcast on this. Like the depth of your change comes down to the amount of reps that you do with the emotional intensity attached to it, right? Like when you really feel it, when you really believe it. And so when somebody is developing this new belief, right, that I don't have to hustle and grind, that I don't have to do these things, how do they go about actually embodying that? Like, how do you live in this? Like, how do you embody this and bring this into your ecosystem every day? Like, how do you make this a part of who you are?
Daily surrender.
Yeah.
So you have to make the decision, right? So you decide first. I love the Emerson quote. I probably quote it at least once a week. Once you decide, all of the universe rearranges itself to bring you what you decided, right? So you decide first. And it sounds simple, although it's not, because as soon as you make a decision, all of the universe is rearranging itself. That's the positive and negative forces. So you've decided, but the negative in you, the part of you that doesn't really hold the belief that you're worthy of it, starts to question and talk you out of it, right? And so you're literally doing that devil and angel back and forth with whatever the decision is that you've made. But once you decide, you have to, and this is what trips people up, detach from the outcome. Because, as the Bible says, God's ways are higher than your ways. And if it is true, and it is, that we operate from a vantage point, from your vantage point, which is always skewed, you likely will only see 1, maybe 2 ways, 3 tops of how to do anything. But when you surrender, when you hold the belief, you have decided that this is what you desire to bring into your life experience. You have fully convinced yourself that you are worthy and deserving of it. That is often a battle in and to itself. And then you detach from how it happens. The how is not your job, it's God's. You just have to believe and not doubt and speak constantly over yourself that this is your new reality. All the while doing the forgiveness work that must be done, forgiving yourself and forgiving anyone else that threatens to derail what it is that you say you desire to bring into your life experience, and trust the process that it will happen. It will happen. It's daily surrender, because some days I surrender fully and other days I'm wearing it's the monkey on my back because fear is setting in, or I'm worried, or I'm looking at what I see and it is impacting what I decided. And there is a point in time where what you decided is not what you see, but you have to hold fast to that vision. You have to see it in order to see it so that you get to experience it. So even when it doesn't look like it's going to happen, holding the belief, speaking the belief, acknowledging the fear. I like EFT, emotional freedom technique. I love to tap. And when I feel fear over anything, I will get the karate chopping, even though I'm afraid that I won't realize my biggest dream. I love and appreciate myself. Even though right now I have no idea how this is going to happen, I believe it is true that this is coming into my life experience. It's coming into my life experience. Like, doing all the tapping. Like literally, because what happens is we free up space and capacity for what it is that we decided to actually show up and embody us. But when you make a decision, when you decide and you do not have capacity for your decision can't show up. That's where surrender comes in. We have to make space, make room, allow for God to be God. Right? What is the goal that takes God? If you can do it in and of your own strength, you're not thinking big enough. Right? And when I say that takes God, I don't mean that God is going to physically do it, because he's already given you the power to create whatever it is that you want. But that level of belief and imagination is so much bigger than you and what might be, quote unquote, humanly possible for you to actually accomplish.
And the space too, the space to even see it. Like I was on a call yesterday with some incredible clients, and one of them dropped in with a story because he got tickled by what he said, and he's like, "Oh, it reminds me of that parable where the guy who's drowning in the ocean, and he prays to God to ask him to come save him, and so he sends a boat, and the boat lowers the ladder, and the guy's like, no, thank you, I'm waiting for God, and then he sends a helicopter, and then he sends a whale, and then he drowns, and he meets him, and he's like, what do you mean? I sent a boat, I sent a helicopter, I sent a whale.
Right.
Did you not see it? And that lesson in surrender is one of the biggest ones, because for me, the surrender was also radical self-love and self-acceptance.
Absolutely.
It's from a place of humility of like, wow, I don't know how to get there yet, but I know that I can become that person or put in that work. But it's also an active choice. And one of my favorite quotes, and I love it, Isaiah chapter 43, 18 to 19, is like, as I continue to walk through an inhospitable, dangerous wilderness, constantly walking away from what was and walking towards what will be. It's the walking part that I got stuck in for so long, because it was this waiting and waiting.
Yeah. And you can't wait on God. He's waiting on you. God will give you more when you're moving than he ever will if you stand still.
Ooh, yep. And
so you gotta be moving.
And what was that first one that you said that tickled before? God will let you live.
Oh yeah. God will let you live on whatever level you settle for.
Oh,
he's a gentleman.
Yeah. Can we unpack that one a bit?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. I just want you to unpack it, because just so everybody knows, right before we record, I'm like, hey, we want to start with desserts, like what tickles. And she spoke one to me and my whole body went into goosebumps. And I was like, here we go. And so God will let you live
on whatever level you settle for, whatever level, right? So God is a gentleman and we have free will. He's not going to usurp his way into our lives, into our hearts, into the way that we operate as human beings, right? This is how, for those of you, if you're not a person who holds a belief in God, and I'm not necessarily talking about religion, but if you don't believe that there's a force in the universe that is greater than you, that's your business. And even if you don't believe it, it doesn't make it not truth. And remember, I said truth is principle, right? So because God is a gentleman and because he's not going to force himself on you, you get to decide, right? The Bible says in a couple of different places, the gist of being, you can have what you say. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. If you delight yourself in the Lord, he'll give you the desires of your heart. You can ask me and it will be given to you. You can seek me and the door will be open for you, or seek and you will find, and knock and the door will be open. There are lots of indications in the word that when you take the action, God meets your action with an action that produces what it is that you desire. And so you get to decide. Right. That is why right now, and it's, some people are going to think this is esoteric, but there are people right now who are choosing to be homeless. They're choosing. They could get up and get a job. They have skills. Like they're choosing. This is the way that they know to live. And therefore, that is the choice that they have made. And God will let them live on that level because that's the one that they've settled for. Just the same as there are people who have decided and chosen to live on the level of wealth and abundance. And guess what? God will let you live on that level too. Wherever you decide, you get to decide. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of being created in his image and likeness. You're a God of the earth. You have the scripture, Genesis 1:26-28. Let us make man in our image and likeness. Let us give him, dominion over the birds and the trees and all of the things, and the power to subdue. Subdue means you have the authority to call everything under your jurisdiction. You over there, you listening all the way back in the back, you riding in your really nice car right now, you in the Uber right now, you have the authority to call everything under your subjection. That's your identity. But you get to choose whether or not you do that. And some of you are succumbing to the thing. Your money is funny, and you've decided that it will always be funny instead of figuring out how to make it not so funny, right? You've decided that. That's your choice. That's your decision, and God will let you live there.
I feel like I've been to 7 churches in the last hour, and I am so here for this. I am drenched in sweat right now, so I just thank you for all of these tickles, and I'm nowhere near done, but I have the most immense amount of gratitude for you. And
Oh, thank you.
it's so humbling to see how you see the world, and it feels so validating for me, but also inspiring. Like I have notes and notes and notes for me to jump into. And one of my favorite quotes that was ever given to me is that a student says, "I already know," and a master says, "Thanks for the reminder." And I feel like you are just reminding me and reminding me. And I feel like this is the greatest gift that I could ever receive. The fact that everybody gets to listen to this is beyond my comprehension. And I understand the gift of it for everybody. But like, just right now, I just wanted to stop for a moment and just say thank you. Like, genuinely, thank you.
I appreciate it. I receive it all. And like, the one thing that I just want to say for everybody, I want to be very clear. This is not about religion.
No.
This is about having a relationship with your creator, just the same as you're in a relationship with money. And some of you are in a thin line between love and hate relationship. And some of you are in a loving, affirming, edifying, safe relationship. You get to decide. I think that and it's part of the reason why it's part of our framework, the Move to Millions method, spirituality. So when I wrote my book last year, Move to Millions, which came out in November, our Move to Millions method was 5 pillars: strategy, sales, system, support, success, mindset. Well, as we were coming into the new year and I was going deeper into everything, I realized that success mindset is really broad. And so we broke it into 3 pillars. So now we have strategy, sales, system, support, success mindset, spirituality, and self-care. And the reason we broke out spirituality, which is bold, which is disruptive. I mean, in business, who does that, right? I do, because I'm bold and I'm unapologetic and I'm unafraid to meet somebody where they are and to show them a perspective that might help them. It's not about getting you to go to church, even though I know George keeps saying we're going to church. It's talking about the feeling that is created in the space. I'm not necessarily talking about the physical building. Yeah. Listen, I don't even go to church. Yeah. I don't go to a physical building. It's about building a relationship that allows you to understand the principles. God is principled. And when you operate and understand his principles, then you get everything that is entitled for you to experience inside of your life. And I don't know about you. I've heard the story of the person gets to heaven and the angel's walking him around and takes him into this room, and this room has all of these gifts in it. And he's like, well, what is this? And he says, these are all of the gifts that we wanted to give you while you were on earth, but you didn't line up to get them. I want mine all right now. I want it now when I can enjoy it, when I can know that I am experiencing a blessing. And so in order to do that, I've made the decision personally to operate in accordance to the principles that God established in the Bible, basic instructions before leaving Earth, right?
Yep.
I don't believe necessarily that it has to be a book that is looked on religiously. I think it is a book that is used in religion, but I think that it is a book that gives you a clear strategy for how to navigate the world, because it's rough out there.
Yeah.
Right? I was going to say it's rough out there for a pimp, but we're not pimps. But, it's rough out there. There are a lot of things happening that we cannot explain, right? I'm a Black woman. I don't have children, but every time my husband is leaving the house and going somewhere, I am praying that he does not get pulled over, because I don't know if the cop who stops him is going to see a Black person and feel fear and get trigger happy, because it happens.
It does.
That's the reality, right? And as a result of that, anchoring into something greater than me, knowing that every step that I take has been ordered and is preordained, it gives me a level of solace that allows me to navigate in confidence, because my connection is strong. And that means I don't need to worry. I can just show up and show out. I can just enter and occupy. I can just take it up space. I don't have to spend my time and energy worrying about something that I don't ever have to be concerned about, because of who I am and whose I am, because of the relationship that I chose to be in. and it governs everything. It's why I talk about it in business. Now, people always ask, do you work with people who don't believe in God? Yes, I do. And it's not like if you don't believe in God, I won't work with you. I mean, I try everything by my level of spirit and discernment. And if I feel like we could be good together, then I would invite you to hire me. But it has to feel good. It has to be a win-win-win. I know how you're going to win. I need to know that I'm going to win too if we work together, because this is my legacy that I'm creating. And so it's important to me that I have these conversations, even though they might be uncomfortable, even though it might make people slide in my DMs and say mean and hurtful things, because that happens. But I can't be concerned about that. I don't have time for that. I got too much of the planet to shake. And my mission to shake the planet is far greater than your mission to be unhappy with me as I do. And just what people think of me just is not my business. I don't have time for that. But it's a personal decision, and we all get to make it. And I can respect the decision that you make about yourself, even if I would have made a different one. So I don't have to sit in judgment.
I just also want to call out, like, we've been talking about embodiment, but one of the things that I say to people, and I just gave a keynote in San Diego, and I said, a lot of people listening to this are going to literally ask me and be convinced that you're here for me to tell you what to think or what to do, but you should look at how we think and how we be. And I just want to say this for everybody listening, like, the amount of undertone underneath here has been summarized so well from you, but your entire state of being is embodiment. There's personal development, there's values, there's principles, there's focus, there's standards, there's understanding that we're what we tolerate, right? And your distinctions and the way that you break them down, I also love it because it sucks all the oxygen out of the excuses. And it doesn't matter which path you take. And if you're in the world of abundance or scarcity, she hits it too. You have to be grateful for what you have. You can't allow outside toxins or poisons to taint your view, because it changes what your brain sees, and all you see is limitations. Very true. And so, like, for everybody listening to this, like, this is one of those, like, listen 3 times and have notebooks galore. But I also want to call out what Darnyelle said in the beginning of, like, allow this to serve you. Like, the worst thing this can become is self-help. And I know there's tickles happening, right? And those tickles are not interruptions. They're invitations. They're an invitation to surrender. They're an invitation to look. They're an invitation to go deeper and really understand that at the end of the day, and it doesn't matter which path. And I love, and here's why, and I'm just going to break the fourth wall. You speak about God and your relationship and God in a way that I'm still learning how, and I'm blessed that I've got to be on the receiving end of this, because it's a muscle for me, and it's a new one, for me. But like your embodiment of all of this just literally inspires the ever living life out of me. Like, I literally feel like taking over the world right now.
Wow.
In such a powerful, powerful way. And like, this is a permission slip for everybody, myself included. Like, you have to take up space. You have to hold a vision, and you have to understand. And the reason I use a branding of a lighthouse in my business is because my favorite lighthouse quote is, lighthouses give light because giving light is its nature. It's not interested in who gets it.
Yeah.
But the oldest standing lighthouse has been in operation for almost 1,300 years, and it's only been turned off twice, to go from whale blubber to kerosene and kerosene to electricity. But that thing was built for an eternity. And I can see you, girl, building a foundation on a castle that literally stands the test of time, and to also see you embodied in it. And it's not even a question. It's just it's already here. It just keeps getting bigger. And when it shows up, it's just going to be more and more and more. And so even for everybody, listening to this, like, I'm going to do this right now, because I will be like, whatever you do listening to this, you better surround yourself with this powerhouse of a woman. And I mean everywhere, and myself included, because I had the gift of meeting her today, and this will be the beginning of many, many things. But your podcast is the Move to Millions podcast, right?
Yep.
Because I was going to be like, oh, let's send people to Instagram. No, no. This needs to be heard. This needs to be felt. This needs to be embodied. And the way that you deliver it, it's like I watch God standing behind your back and just pushing the words out that literally tickle straight to the core. And they are the most precise surgical instruments that hit and tickle at every point. And you also give people the tools and distinctions to borrow belief in themselves until they have it on their own, to be able to get to work. And the breakdowns and the exercise on paper and understanding these is really how you love yourself. It's really loving yourself enough to look and be like, wow, I can adjust this. I can be better. I can live in a different way. I can have a bigger belief of myself. I can accept and surrender that I'm perfect, whole, and complete as I am. And I might accept that I want to be a Tom Brady of a football player, but that doesn't mean I know how to throw the ball yet, but I'm still capable as long as I see myself as whole and complete. And like, I'm beyond moved, like, and beyond grateful, like, just for you even sharing this space. Like, this feels like sacred air to me. And for everybody about the church thing, I literally, I feel like I am you in a short white body, right? Like, just a few years younger, 5'7" on a good day with a mohawk, but like, I am in that. And like, for me, church is anywhere where there's space for me to be connected to God. And for me, that's why I live in Montana. I go take ice baths in glacier water, and I'll tell you, God speaks really quick in 33-degree moving glacier water.
He would have to, because I don't think I would be able to stay out there for very long. So he would have to speak fast.
And she's like, all right, boy, you stay in Montana with your June snowstorms and like keep it out of me.
You can have all of that. You can have all of that. Thank you. I just want to say thank you. I receive it. I appreciate it. These are words that I need to hear for myself. I think often people believe that when you are a me, that you know the power that you hold for other people. It never gets old to hear someone else edify me and mirror back to me what I've given to them. So thank you. I receive it. I appreciate it.
I'll tell you right now, God put it on my heart because you have a volume knob and I have every intention on turning it up. Like every intention on turning it up. And for everybody, like, command the space and take it. Because the thing is that when your intention is pure, you're supposed to take up as much space as possible.
Yeah.
And the reason we lose is because people with unpure intentions take up the space. And one of the things I said to people at my event, and I'm going to say this to everybody on the podcast, and this was a private conversation, but you need to wake up. Because only people with light doubt themselves. And every time you do, darkness gains an inch. Because the darkness never doubts itself.
Yeah.
Only the light does. Good. And that's this game. That's this game of standing for people. The world is screaming for heart-centered light leaders to wake up. And leadership is not passive. It's active. And I'm saying this publicly. This is what it looks like, and not from me. I've been taken to church today on places where I've allowed my volume knob to be turned down, where I've had fear of things. And even at the event, right? Like at the event, I'm the first one awake and the last one asleep because I'm there to serve people. But
right. Yeah, same thing. Same thing we do at our events.
2 a.m. firesides. And then I go to sleep and I'm like, can't sleeping because I'm like, did I say it okay? And I like had to check in with God, and I was like, no, my heart is pure. And then a couple of days later, like, I'm so glad that you said what you said. But God, I also want people to know, if you're listening to this, send her words of praise and affirmation, because for me, the doubt gets darker and deeper, the louder and louder we get. And the more we hear it, the more we know and we live in our truth. But somebody has to say it. And it's our job to take that stand. Like, that's what leadership looks like. And so I'm humbled by you. Like, in so many ways, I am humbled by you. And I thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Again, I can't speak it enough. And it's interesting that you just talked about, when you're hosting your events. We do an event every May called Move to Millions. And similarly, like, I'm in the throes of beginning the process of really unearthing everything that I'm going to teach this year. All new content, totally new focus, and how we are presenting to the people that are coming from all over the world to come and hang out with us for 3.5 days. So I get it. I feel it. I definitely appreciate everything that you're saying.
Yeah. And trust me, we'll have a side talk after, because I'm like, anything I can do to support you, you have a warrior in your corner and access to anything that I have, anyone I know, anything I do, because I will help you turn this up. And so, okay. So first, Move to Millions podcast. Where's the best place for people to find that?
Yeah, if you just go to movetomillions.com, it's a page that has all things Move to Millions on it. So my book, my planner, my podcast, the event, our mastermind, everything is right there. Yeah. Plus, you can also find me on Instagram and
Yeah,
called
yeah.
to play.
And we'll make sure, and I'm going to have all of those things linked. And I'm saying this aggressively. Like, if anything tickled today, you have my permission to stop listening to my podcast if she serves you better, if that tickles you, because this is a game of abundance and rising tides rise all ships. And wherever
right.
you pick up the message and wherever it tickles your soul. But girl, I will say I call it church because you know how to speak to my soul. So like
Listen, I don't have a problem with you calling it church, right?
Oh,
I
I know,
get
I
it,
know. I
right? And
appreciate the distinction.
yeah, and I like to say that because I know, taking on the call and the mantle to be very forthwith about God, right? It's who I am. I'm very unapologetic about it. I know that naturally makes people uncomfortable because they have their own trauma from Christianity. I was in church at 23 when my first ex-fiance got an older trustee in my church pregnant, and my pastor didn't say anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people who have experienced hurt in and around church, and some of them have become agnostic to God. Some of them are atheists. Some of them are not. Like, they're in a permanently backslidden state, right? They're just not interested because they let man flower their relationship with God. And that's why I keep saying relationship and not religion, because man will mess up. That's what religion is. It's man-made. There was no religion in Genesis, right? That all that stuff came later. That's man creating division and all of that. That was never God's intent for you. And so understanding that difference is why I say it. And I use spirituality on purpose. Like, I've had so many people say, well, why don't you say Christian? And, aren't you called to Christians? I am not called to Christians. I'm called to people who desire to experience abundance financially and spiritually in their life because of their business. I teach spiritual principles that are found in the Bible and other religious and spiritual texts, because it's all principles. Mm-hmm. But I'm not called to one or the other. I love people of faith, and I also love people who aren't of faith, because if they are open, I can show them a reality that shifts the trajectory of the rest of their lineage. Just because they were willing to consider the feasibility that there might be another way, and doing it in concert with a spiritual focus might be the game change that they really needed in order to live their best life.
And if it wasn't for people like you, I wouldn't have a relationship with God because of the darkness that I lived through and saw as a Marine and in life. And so it's because nobody made me wrong, and they loved me through the process, and they didn't use their words. They used their state of being to show me what unconditional love was like.
Yeah.
And after enough safety nets were thrown underneath me with the most loving presence and pieces ever, and the one thing they all had in common was their relationship with God, I decided to finally love and accept my father and realize I'd been running from him my whole life. And so your perspective is also extremely validating and empowering in so many ways. And the way that I'll say it is, and I'll tell everybody this openly, everything that you shared, every story, the bankruptcies, the monies, all of it, the cycles, like, it's literally like I was listening to my own life.
Yeah.
And how
I get that a lot.
Yeah. And how it was tickled back into me is when he was 5. Yeah. When my son was 5, he just walked home one day and we saw a dead animal, and he asked me to pray. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. And then an hour later, my son started singing a song that was played in the youth group's basement where I would hide when I was homeless, but they never judged me. They never made me bad and wrong. And they were like, do you want to have a sleepover? And it just magically showed up. And then I went to my masseuse, and of all people, and I don't know where this came from, I was walking into my massage, and it felt called to my heart. And I said, are you a man of faith? And he said, yeah. I said, can you pray with me? And he put his hands on my shoulders, and he just prayed for 30 minutes and knew nothing about me. And I literally destroyed his carpet with tears.
Yeah.
And he looked me dead in the eye, and the only thing he ever said to me, he said, just remember, the only testimony you ever want to mimic was Jesus Christ's state of being. And that relationship is between you and him. And it changed my entire life, like my entire life. And so thank you for giving me a permission slip on my own podcast to articulate in a way that I haven't been able to with surgical precision of words that I've struggled to find about my relationship and how I feel in a way that I don't think I could have articulated it so well. And so this
Wow,
was a
you're
gift
welcome.
for me.
You are so welcome. This has been amazing, and I'm so grateful that we had this opportunity to connect and to really connect.
To
So,
really connect. So I do
yeah.
have one final question, and
Okay.
I love asking this question, and I'm ready for this one. So
Okay.
and by the way, I also appreciate that you and I see the world identically the same without having to say anything about it either. And there's just this knowing. But in the Men in Black movie, they always flash people's memory and make them forget everything that was there. And so I say, imagine that everybody listening forgot absolutely everything that was said. But in this moment, you have the ability to tattoo any wisdom on their soul that they will take with them forever. What would your tattoo wisdom be?
Yeah, you are worthy and you do deserve it. Now go get it.
Straight where it belongs. You are worthy, you deserve it, and go get it.
Yeah.
And as you go get it, and it doesn't matter which one of us, know that you have two teammates in your corner as long as you pick up the phone. So whether it's me, whether it's her, or whether it's somebody else, surround yourself with like-minded people who can see you and support you getting there. Because you got a mission, you have a big impact to be had, and the more of us that support each other, the more everybody in the world wins. And so I am just so grateful. We will be doing this again at some point. I'm just throwing that out into the ether right now, and just
I welcome it.
Yeah, I welcome it too. And so for everybody listening, this has been another episode of the Mind of George show, where I still believe parts of it belong in a straitjacket, but we share the safest parts with you. And our incredible guest took us to church and helped articulate so many more things today. But I will leave you with this reminder, and she said it at the very beginning. Allow anything that landed here today to be the invitation to pick up the phone and give it a chance, because what's the worst that could happen? Oh, that's right. Only good things when you try it. And so anything that tickled, whether it's the exercise on the paper, whether it's being unapologetic about your beliefs, whether it's releasing old ones, whether it's stepping into your power and using your voice, like, you pick one, but pick one and use it today, because that will plant the seed for everything to follow. And this is a state of being and actions that we get to take, because it's when we walk, it's when we implement these things that we make, and we are the difference. And the more you live this way, the more you embody this, the faster you will see everything conspiring in your favor and benefit to bring you more. And so this is a re-listen. This is a take notes. This is going down as one of those in the archives, getting moved up to the top 10 podcasts that I will be recommending to everybody. And I recommend you listen to it the same. And so go in the show notes, make sure you connect with her. Make sure you go check out the pod. You pick whatever modality tickles, whether it's her book or her journal or anything, but take it, put it into practice, and we will see you guys in the next episode. You'll either hear me in your earballs, but either way, we're out.